People are dying in Nigeria. 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 People are being killed 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 in Nigeria. The government does nothing to save people's life in Nigeria. The government does nothing to save people's life in Nigeria. The government does nothing to save people's life in Nigeria. The government does nothing to save people's life in Nigeria. The president didn't change the security head because they were incompetent at tackling kidnappers and all that. The president didn't tackle the situation of insecurity. He didn't change the army chief of staff. He didn't change the security details because people were being killed. He changed them because of his regime change. He changed them because he was scared of him being toppled. That was the main reason why he changed them. The so-called failed coup and what looms in the near future is something we ought to be looking out for. Why are people disgruntled? Why are people angry? Why are people sad? Why are people annoyed with the current president? Because he didn't promise anything and he is delivering almost on nothing. I find it difficult to understand why many persons think the president is delivering on his promises. What did he promise Nigerians? What are the things he promised us? I want to know. I can remember the naira has not come down. He met it in when it was still in its hundreds. Now it's in its 1,700 and the likes of that, and it is still there. I don't know what the current government is doing, but all I know is that people are dying in Nigeria. How can we live in such a very big country and don't want to join Nnamdi Kanu to call the place a zoo? I'm not saying Nigeria is a zoo, but you will be tempted to want to call it a zoo. Because which country kills its own citizens and then imprisons those who are dissenting and those who are trying to ask for fairness? Showore, for whatever reason or for whatever perception you have about him, has come out again and again and again and again to air his views. He has been arrested from his 20s, arrested, rearrested, charged to court, maimed, beaten, tear gassed, and all of the situation that can be done to one person just for the same reason. You don't like it, you don't need to like his tactics. But sometimes when you are beaten, you don't necessarily need to be told how to cry. You know, when you are beating a child, you equally don't tell them how to cry. One sits down in a safe country like the one I am at the moment, and one begins to ask himself, to what level of barbarism have we stooped so low when it comes to, not wanting to protect our own and not wanting to protect the lives of our brothers and sisters. And I say this as it concerns the recent changes in the security operatives and security duties in Nigeria. And mind you, the president didn't change these people because they were incompetent as it concerns the unwarranted killings that have been going on in Nigeria and the endless brutality that I've seen, to the uncountable deaths we've experienced from the Middle East to the North Central down to the far north, as well as the Southeast and the South itself. No, the president didn't sack these officials because of this particular situation. He sacked them and replaced them for his own selfish reason, to keep his regime. It was a thing about regime preservation as opposed to the lives of Nigerians, and it is no, it's fine, it's fine. He didn't sack these people because he he felt they were not delivering or doing their jobs. He sacked them because he felt threatened, or he felt his government would be toppled. They came out to deny the coup the coup attempt on the country, or on his government, and then few days later he saw himself sacking these personnel, and it brings to mind a very, very disturbing and troubling pattern of situation back home as it concerns the realities we as Nigerians get to find ourselves in. Who get to protect us when there's there's a sense of insecurity? Who gets to call our names in the places that matter, so that we also can get security operatives, we also can get policemen and women guarding us with AK-47s and the different rifles and different guns and the different ammunitions, or the different situations we get to have as a people? Who get to call our names when it matters most? Who get to call our names when we need to be fed? Who get to call our names when we need to be protected? Who gets to call our names when we need to preserve our lives? The president, has a whole lot of slots. He has a lot of places he could go to. He has a lot of people that could grant him support, grant him so-called. Let's even assume there was a coup tomorrow, and the coup was a successful coup. The president, if it was a bloodless coup like the one of Gowon, he would still have people who cater for his needs. And even if it turned out to be a bloody coup, he would still have people who would take care of his children and would take care of the children's children. Tell me the past leader of Nigeria that has gone on, dead or alive, in terms of family legacy, that is not one way or the other doing well. From Zeke to Abacha to Shagari to Tafawa Balewa to the Sadwana of Sokoto, mention it, even to Motwala Mohammed, even to the different people killed down there, even to Iran Sea and all that. These people are a high place one way or the other, by tooth or nail, by competence or not. They found themselves in different places, and they can still cater for themselves, and they can still move on with their life. But you and I, who cater for us? Who cater for your family? Who caters for my family? Who caters for your friends? And when was the last time you saw a hospital? When was the last time you saw a functioning police station? When was the last time you saw your military actually do their job and do it well? Now I heard they have changed SAS to whatever they have changed it to. 5 years ever since the bloody, deadliest protest we had in Nigeria happened, we still have the same squad down here. They moved them from SAS to SWAT, and I think they've moved them to a different name at the moment. And you just ask what the problem is, and you just ask how crazy we are, how chaotic our situation is, and how 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 unthinkable our sense of suffering have made us, come to not even question our basic realities anymore, not to question basic things. I say this because you travel around the world, and by no means, this example I want to, by no means am I trying to make a comparison here, but come on, if you travel around the world and you see things that are good, you should be able to point them out and say them out, and then hope and wish your government can do the same for your own people. You travel around the world, you see buildings, you see brick walls as far back as the 18th century, as far back as the 14th century, as far back as the 15th century, even in countries that have been torn by a war, even in countries that have been bombarded and and even in countries that have been bombarded by the different situations they have found themselves, even in countries that have found themselves in the most catastrophic of situations, earthquake, natural disasters, and the likes of that, you still find a sense of purpose, and you still find a sense of structure in the things they get to do, and in the ways they get to maintain their buildings, and in the ways they get to maintain their structure. Okay, I want to say we were not building like this. In times past, we predominantly work with clay, and because we believe we were mercantile people, we moved about, and we were nomadic, or we were this, we were that. But times are changing. Times have in fact changed. People change how they build. People change how they drive. People change how they transport. We also can do better. We also can do these basic things. But then you still look around and you don't even see the sense in which we even are trying to improve. It just leaves you worried, it leaves you thinking, it leaves you angry, because it is not as if we don't know. Maybe we don't even know, because last night while I was waiting for my train, I was just thinking about the idea of conferences and festivals and food as it concerns the way we get to bury our dead, the way we get to. It was actually a literary festival, and the I barely saw food, not even snacks. I barely saw anything that would distract the people from the main goal they came for. Okay, you might want to talk about a sense of disposable income and stuff like that, but people knew why they came. Disposable income is a thing. People could cater for themselves, and there were shops around to get the same snacks. Ordinarily, the festival organizers would have thought of getting to get for people, but people did these stuff for themselves. They ate on their own. They did stuff by their own. They just came sad for the talks, and these talks have been going on for about 3 weeks now. Even on Sundays, but very, very few programs on Sundays, and people still show up. People still show up from different cities, from different towns. But back to the very beginning of where I started from, insecurity. There's a high risk of losing one's life in Nigeria now than ever before. It is alarming. I have been listening to the conversations about the whole idea of a Christian genocide. I've seen the shenanigans and the crazy ideas always purported by Reno and his ways of getting to be the same person he has always been, a con and a scam on many fronts. And I just look at those who follow him for the so-called nuggets, and I can only but laugh, or I can only but feel sad for them and how they have chosen to live their life. I've also looked at my account. I've seen David Hundeyi's take on it. I have looked at Dele Farotimi's take on the situation. I've looked at Father Kelvin Akam's, Father Felix Uche Akam's idea of the situation on ground and the conversation down there. I've even looked at the article of Gimba Kakanda, and he was one of the first persons that responded, right? People have talked about a Christian genocide, people have talked about not a Christian genocide, and all of this type of conversation. But where's the place for the dead to, stand up on the dock and then answer for themselves and tell us how they were lynched and how they were mobbed and how they were stabbed and how they were burnt alive and how they were killed? Where's the space for the dead man? How is the dead man going to tell us his story? How is the dead woman going to tell us his story? How is that child whose life was cut short going to tell us his story? How are we going to really understand the story of that family completely burnt? How are we going to understand the situations of those who have not come to live? I know Dominic Tachinsky has come to say a whole lot of stuff as it concerns. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you. We we have come to we've come to look at Dominic Tatinsky talk about this. We've come to look at Ted Cruz talk about this. We've come to look at the Daily Wire talk about this particular situation with their half-baked generic posts they get to make all the time with no serious depth or no serious context. And the same Mad Wash that talked about the idea of the fact that Muslims have done little or nothing. In fact, he said categorically nothing for the civilization of America. And I'm like, whoa. And you get to see what Mehdi Hassan gave as a response to him, and which was a killer. I love Mehdi for a whole lot of stuff. And just like Shapiro always try to convince himself, facts don't care about your feelings. Reality is reality. What is, regardless of your feelings and the likes of that. But be that as it may, we have to look at the fact that people are dying. And the most common and well thought of approach would be to take the approach of Mr. Dele Farotimi. You might not like the term might not meet whatever you think it is. It was a term recently coined. The whole idea of genocide was a term coined and sung on our ears by the Jews just less than 80 years ago. And so it makes sense that we now come to think of it as a particular sense or a particular sensibility as it is, and those perpetrating the crime or those being accused of genocide, we will almost always want to deny it. The same way you had Germany denying their crimes, the same way you had Russia denying their crimes, the same way you have Israel denying its crime at the moment. The same way you come to look at the reality of the people of Rwanda and the situation they went down there, and up until today, many sectors are still finding it difficult even to call it a genocide. They call it whatever they want to call it in Rwanda, but they fail to call it by what it is. So it is an imperative that those accused of these wanton killings, one way or the other, deny these situations. And you don't expect the Nigerian government to just come out and accept that there's a genocide going on. And maybe we need to re-strategize and recalibrate our sense and our definition of what we term as this particular concept in the first place. What would make for a genocide? Beyond the whole idea of the ethnic cleansing of a particular people, the well-targeted attempt to simply trying to cleanse a particular group of people, you get to look at this situation and tell yourself, one soul has died, one human is dead. How many more are going to die before we start recalibrating ourselves back? Now, I mean, look at the number of Palestinians that have been killed in retaliation for the still atrocious deaths of I don't want to, they're not Israelis on October 7th. Meanwhile, we know the provocation didn't start on October 7th and all that, but let's just even accept. Let's just even want to hold that particular idea, that brand of philosophy for the sense of a just war. How much evil, how much retaliation can be meted out on a people so that they ordinarily would come to find themselves in a very, very remorseful place and tell themselves, never again are we going to make such attempts and the likes of this. But the focus down here is Nigeria. We don't have enough journalists who are even willing to tell us what is happening. We don't have enough investigative journalists who are willing to risk their lives to tell us the situation on the ground. We don't even have the statistics. Be it from 2011 to the current period, or 2009 or 2007 to the current period, we don't have statistics. So that almost any statistics you see out there, you begin to question, you begin to ask yourself, what really is the case on ground? How much do we know of this particular situation, and how much don't we know? And how much do we need to know? And how are we going to even start knowing when we've refused? So you know what? Tell ourselves that, we've just been killing ourselves. What is the president saying? What is he doing? Every day giving himself accolades and accolades and accolades for things that don't exist, for projects he claims to fulfill, for comparing himself with countries that shouldn't even be on the same planetary system with him, if he happened to be one of the galaxies, or one of the planetary bodies and the likes of that. You might be comparing Jupiter to Plato, to Pluto, or you might be comparing Mars to Saturn, or you might be comparing. So the comparisons are so inaccurate and are so anyhow, and I don't tend to understand the situation on ground and how things ordinarily are, and how we want to continue to see things go before we make the necessary change we ought to make to see that our situations get better and we come to thrive, and we come to thrive well. Because in the grand scheme of things, it is you and I who gets to still suffer. It is your father, your mother, my mother, your brothers and sisters, my brothers and sisters. We are the ones that get to suffer. We are the ones that get to go through the pains and go through the problems and go through the different crazy calamities we tend to go through. It is you and I that go through these particular situations, and it is you and I that you face this stuff. The big guys, they face it once in a while. Maybe they go later die abroad. Look at Abdul Salam telling us that he was just discharged from the same hospital. President Buhari died. Two past leaders of the country who claim to have so much that who claim to be given so much credit and respect for things I don't understand what they even did. The hospitals they went to were hospitals that were founded even before the independence of Nigeria, and yet they still couldn't replicate almost anything back home. Not even the so-called General Hospital in Maitama, not even the hospital in Abuja, or the specialist clinic at the National Assembly can take care of our own legislature or the executive. The executive cannot receive treatment down there, the legislature cannot receive treatment down there, and the judiciary, oh my God, I don't even want to go down there. What about the police officers? What about the soldiers? How are they even being treated? How do they even get paid? These are questions we don't even want to start asking ourselves. And we see politicians come out, roll out very cheap projects, and we clap for them and we are happy for them. They sink a borehole for 40 million. They buy a GP tank for 40 million. As if boreholes are solutions to our problem. Boreholes can never be solutions to problems, long-term problems. Boreholes are solutions to short-term problems. They cannot be a long-term solution. When was the last time, again, I ask you, when was the last time you saw a police officer and you felt a sense of ease in your village? When was the last time? 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 When was the last time you saw a police officer in your area? When was the last time you had security? When was the last time, even you who find yourself abroad, who think of visiting home and your parents tell you, no, don't come. We are fine. We'll make video call. Send us the money. We'll buy land. We'll do this. We'll do that. Even the land they want to buy. When was the last time you've seen your family members even buy land in places where people know you? When was the last time your parents slept and closed their two eyes, knowing that their child is abroad and anything can happen to them? When was the last time your friends actually had it easy for them? And we sit down here and you tell me there's no Christian genocide in Nigeria, or there's no genocide in fact going on in Nigeria, the generality of it. So let's incorporate the Muslims, let's incorporate the irreligious, let's incorporate every group of people, let's incorporate Christians and other. Let us put everybody together, and we will still come back to the same number. People are dying in Nigeria. 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 People are being killed 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 in Nigeria. The government does nothing to save people's life in Nigeria. The government does nothing to save people's life in Nigeria. The government does nothing to save people's life in Nigeria. The government does nothing to save people's life in Nigeria. The president didn't change the security head because they were incompetent at tackling kidnappers and all that. The president didn't tackle the situation of insecurity. He didn't change the army chief of staff. He didn't change the security details because people were being killed. He changed them because of his regime change. He changed them because he was scared of him being toppled. That was the main reason why he changed them. The president changed the security details of the country because he became afraid that he will be toppled. That is the main reason. He didn't change it because people were being killed in Nigeria. He didn't change the security details because people were being killed in Nigeria. He didn't change the security details because people were being killed in Nigeria. He changed the security details because his regime and his selfish interest was threatened and is continually going to be threatened, whether you like it or not. Just like Tosin Adeoti wrote recently, the so-called failed coup and what looms in the near future is something we ought to be looking out for. Why are people disgruntled? Why are people angry? Why are people sad? Why are people annoyed with the current president? Because he didn't promise anything and he is delivering almost on nothing. I find it difficult to understand why many persons think the president is delivering on his promises. What are the president's promises? What did he promise Nigerians? What are the things he promised us? I want to know. I can remember the Naira has not come down. He met it in when it was still in its hundreds. Now it's in its 1,700 and the likes of that. And it is still there. I don't know what the current government is doing, but all I know is that people are dying in Nigeria. People are, look, the siren is blaring. The police officers are going after a chase. You think it's one major crime. It might just be two people fighting in an apartment or something, and two sirens just blare past me, and they blare past all the time. Meanwhile, we sit in a country of over 230 million people now. It's almost heading to 240, if we're not even heading to 250, because we don't have the statistics. The last time we tried doing this particular census of a thing, we lost money, billions of naira, in the name of preparation and advert campaigns and all of those type of stuff, and it ended up not even happening. We don't have the statistics. How can we live in such a very big country and don't want to join Nnamdi Kanu to call the place a zoo? I'm not saying Nigeria is a zoo, but you will be tempted to want to call it a zoo. Because which country kills its own citizens and then imprisons those who are dissenting and those who are trying to ask for fairness? Showore, for whatever reason or for whatever perception you have about him, has come out again and again and again and again to air his views. He has been arrested from his 20s, arrested, rearrested, charged to court, maimed, beaten, tear gassed, and all of the situation that can be done to one person just for the same reason. You don't like it, you don't need to like his tactics. But sometimes when you are beaten, you don't necessarily need to be told how to cry. You know, when you are beating a child, you equally don't tell them how to cry. When you rape a girl, you don't tell her how to go about reporting your situation. You don't tell her how to react. You don't tell her if she shoots you in revenge. You don't tell her if she stabs you later. You don't tell her how to go about paying you back because you've taken something so dear to her. When you name the people, you don't tell them how to react. We don't even have the basic rights to even protest again in the country. We don't have the basic rights to protest again in the country. We don't have the very, 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 very basic rights. Very, very basic rights. The very basic rights to do the very things we ordinarily claim to supposed to do in a democracy. We cannot even do in a place like Nigeria. And it is sad, it is sickening, it is annoying, it is depressing, it is everything you want to think about because these people shouldn't have died in the first place. Let's not even go to the lifespan of the average Nigerian. Let us not even go to that particular angle. Let us still stay on the normal frame of reference. Let us still stay on the normal thought process of how we ought to look at ourselves and how we ought to navigate our lives and in and about that. Let us talk about the basic stuff. Look at Benue State. Look at the governor. Look at the drama that ensued with the president visiting the state. Look at how it took him so long to even consider and even come to conceive of the idea of wanting to go to such a state. And even when he got to the state, he didn't show up at the place he was supposed to show up. And then they turned it into some campaign stuff and all of that. And it is just I have friends from Benue State, and I know this story. I feel I'm not ripe yet to tell this particular story. I know this particular story so well, and and it's not one story. It's several stories. It's several people being killed. It's several people being maimed. It's several people being tortured. It's several people being disappeared. It's several people being dehumanized. It's several people being it's several things to several people, and people are dying in Nigeria. People are dying in Nigeria. I don't know. I don't know if you know. If your father has not died yet, other people have lost their parents. If your brother has not died yet, other people have lost their family members. They have lost their brothers. People are dying in numbers that shouldn't be, and we don't need to pray for protection from God. People are really, really dying in Nigeria. People are really, really dying in Nigeria, and we are not thinking about it the way we also think about it, and we are not looking about solutions to these particular problems, and we continue to distrust ourselves. And with a crop of injustice being meted out on one, on two, on three, on four, it continues. At what point do you think we would come to reconcile our differences and move on and move forward? At what point do you think we would come to be at peace with each other? At the point where we must have killed ourselves and maimed ourselves and retaliated the crimes committed by our so-called enemies, by ourselves and all that, is it that time we would now want to come to make peace? It most likely will be too late. It most likely will be too late. Take this, if you don't know, people are dying in Nigeria. I am Biringkpa in Mecca, and this is Boring Conversations. See you next time.